Today's guest has an unexpected career path. Eric spent 12 years as a pastor before realizing the emotional weight of carrying other people's struggles was taking a serious toll on his health. That realization led him to make a dramatic career change, becoming an FBI special agent, where he spent the next 24 years investigating everything from financial crimes to crimes against children and human trafficking. Let's roll right in. All right, welcome to the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. Today we have Eric Robinson. He's a retired FBI agent after 24 years as a special agent. His work has spanned crimes including white collar, counterterrorism, crimes against children, gangs, drugs, and public corruption. He was also a pastor, which is very interesting, and I want to hear more about that, and is finishing a book called Irreverend From Saving Souls to Chasing Sinners in the FBI. He has seen the good and bad in people. Eric, welcome to the show.
Tony, thanks a lot. This is exciting because I get to talk about just work.
Love it. Well, that's what we do, Eric. So define work for us today.
Oh, golly. What you gave me a heads up on these things. I had a colleague once who was testifying on a case she wasn't familiar with, and without preparation, the prosecutor says, "Well, can you explain what a download is?" And she's like, it's when you download." So, yeah, hit me up ahead of time. So work for me was always, it's just what your everyday is, what your career is about. I've always told my kids, if you can make a living earning money for your family, that's noble. If you can have a job that also provides a benefit to society, boy, you're doubly blessed. And had work in two careers that had both. So I blessed times four, maybe, I guess. So that was a benefit for me. And I guess if you love work, you can get by with it sucking.
Fair enough. Well, we definitely want to go into the parts that more or less suck today and what you're doing to make it not suck. But Eric, I'm very curious. Let's start back when you became a pastor. I want to start there in the timeline of kind of your work and we'll grow from there. What made you take that sort of path in your life then?
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian home. We went to church each week. It wasn't a dominating thing. It was just part of what we did and who we were. Didn't feel bad about it. I enjoyed going to church. And I had a precocious knowledge of the Bible when I was a kid. I was the one who always raised his hand in Sunday school because I had the answers. Later in college, my faith became more personal. I understood the Bible more. And I came to a point where I thought, oh, this is something that I enjoy. It's something that I think is a need. And yeah, maybe I want to do this. So took that path to get into ministry. My initial idea was I was going to be a missionary to Muslim countries. I had gone on a missions trip to the Middle East when I was in college. When my wife and I got together, though, there were some family issues that made that not a good decision. So stayed in the U.S. in a traditional path of youth pastor, assistant pastor, and then lead pastor of a church.
No, that's awesome. So you did that for 12 years, right? So I guess now walk us through. I'm very curious to hear this transition. You go from pastor to now FBI agent. What was missing, I guess, in the work as a pastor that you saw the potential in as an FBI agent?
What was missing was relief. Uh,
Ah,
I I I really enjoyed pastoring, and when I got to be the senior pastor and lead the church, then I was deciding we're going to do church this way. We're going to be a church of outreach. We're going to welcome people. If we make mistakes, we're going to err on the side of grace. I'll let God judge me for being too welcoming to people, and I love that, but I lacked the capacity to separate myself from people's problems, and that caused stress. And that stress caused daily headaches every day for 2 years. And so though I thought this is great, we're successful by every measure, I I can't do this anymore. And I just got to a place where I knew either my body was going to stop in some catastrophic way, or prior to that, I need to find some sanity. So told my wife I need a job with less stress, so I joined the FBI.
I guess I don't know much about the FBI. So I guess like what in your mind said that was going to be less stress? I'm just very curious.
So, and I just use that as shorthand. There were so many other features as well that I think get into the work sucks part. I often told people that I will spend eternity in heaven with some of the people I hate the most. So, great Christians, and then there's ones who are horrible. And I have no reason to doubt their salvation theologically, but just people who were mean to me, who were backstabbing. What was great about moving into the FBI is here are Christians and you expect them to act the way you think a Christian should, and then they don't. And then here's criminals. And I'm not surprised when they act like criminals because that's what they're doing. That's what, and so the disappointment's not there. I could come to a place where I had things that I could succeed in, that I could resolve. I had a purpose to bring some justice or accountability. Got that done. Good result. In the church, I'm working with people. They've got problems. Not like people's problems are going to be solved. Like, congratulations, we've reached perfection. And so it was just ongoing and demanding for me. And despite that, there obviously was stress in the FBI, wasn't the same, and it just washed away.
So interesting. So I guess, Eric, what is the process for applying to be an FBI agent?
Well, this was 25 years ago, so it's
Okay.
changed a little
Fair
bit.
enough. Fair enough.
Uh, the internet was nascent. It was just a babe, so it was robust enough that I could download the 60 some pages to fill out to tell the federal government, everybody I've been in contact with since I was 16 years old, everywhere I lived, and extended family. Can't Google stuff. I have to make phone calls. So you make that application. If you're going to be an agent, you have to have a clean record, no drugs, bachelor's degree, at least 3 years experience outside of college, and then you apply. Applicant coordinator looks at it, says, "Yeah, this guy looks like he could be a candidate." Pushes you on to phase one testing, which is an aptitude test. And so I took that in Buffalo, New York, and I remember leaving going, "Yeah, I gave it a try." And then they called back, and I thought, "Oh, that's great. I don't know how I passed that." And then you're on to written exam, and I thought, "Okay, now I've got this more in my hands." An oral exam where you can tell
Mm.
how you've dealt with obstacles and what results came from that, and I thought, "I'm good with that." Fit test, I was in shape, still am to a degree, different shape.
Sure, sure.
Fit test, background, physical, and then the polygraph, which is the worst thing
Mm.
that a human can experience.
I can only imagine that, right?
It's not
So
fun.
walk us through, Eric, a typical day. Now I know that kind of seems like an odd word to say with your line of work being an agent, but what was kind of a typical day? Because when I think of FBI agent, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about it. I think of the movies, right? You were total like badass, you probably were.
Yeah,
I guess
bet.
like walk us through that day.
If you made a movie about the typical day for an FBI agent, it would be rated R for profanity because you're yelling at the computer for not working right, and your stupid password expired, and I'm on the phone with tech support saying, "I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm looking at the sticky note and I'm typing in the password and it's not working." But the usual day is like we're either beginning an investigation, and we'll have probably 4 or 5, maybe more going on at the same time. But then there's like our main one, and so I'm either at the beginning, I'm finishing up another one, and I'm going through process of analyzing phone records that maybe I got, depends on what violation you're working. I've set up interviews or I'm setting them up. I'm looking at the background of this criminal, of what does the social media look like, working with my analysts to say, hey, can you get into this guy for me? And depending on the violations, it could be very broad. With the financial ones, you're pounding paper, you're doing interviews from victims. With when I worked crimes against children, our mandate was to get pimps who were trafficking teenage girls, and so a lot of that was federal social work, where my partner and I are knocking on a door talking to a 15-year-old who is at risk or known to be prostituting. When I was working that, my wife would say, "Oh, Eric, what's on the schedule today?" And I would yell at her and say, "I don't know. I know what I have planned, but some runaway girl is gonna foul up my whole day, and, and then here you go."
How did you handle your emotions? I can only imagine. Again, you're going from pastor, you're hopefully seeing the good in people, these values you want to uphold in your life and their lives. And then you got these people that are doing this horrific things. Like, how did you manage your emotions like through that process?
In each case, whether I am looking into someone who's a criminal or I'm engaging with them post arrest or an interview along the way, I I'm treating them like a human. So the
Okay.
idea that this man's a monster, he's not a monster, he's a human who's done this thing, that thing, and that thing. And part of it too is getting to understand them, at least it was for me, that it was valuable for me to not allow it, but to get into what's driving this person. Drug dealer, why is he doing it? Okay, well, he needs money. He sees this as amoral. And so he knows it's against the law. He's just doing it. Gang members are involved because broken homes, needing to get into a group, have some meaning that way. Violence comes from violence against them. So there was a lot to it, which then makes it much easier. But what was remarkable about that is that now I'm not just working with this homogeneous unit in my church where pretty much everybody's coming from a similar background, similar socioeconomic status in the same town. But now I'm sitting down with a 15-year-old prostitute, interviewing her in her grandma's apartment. Four of us, me and my partner, knee to knee. Gal says, "Don't worry, she can't hear a thing." And while we're sitting there, this young girl's telling us about all these men that she's engaging with. And Granny's just sitting there with a, unknowing smile on her face. And that stuff's crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't expect I'd be doing that.
So, what do you think motivates people more, Eric? I mean, I guess like looking at, again, people at the church, and then these other, like you said, like you humanize it, right? They're still people. They are still people. But what have you seen in terms of like what motivates people more? Is it like fear, rewards? Is it belonging, meaning? What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is safety and stability.
Ah,
So, again, going back to the teen prostitutes, they're trying to survive. They're making money. They're trying to get away from adults, parents who are absent, harmful, drug addicted. They're now clinging to a man who loves them, this pimp who's manipulating. The pimp is looking for stability in his community, a group, a society in that small pimp society that says this is what makes you a man. This is what makes you stronger by having a stable of girls. Financial crimes, looking for stability to make money. Nothing's ever enough. Working with some of the idealized extremists, some of the terrorists. I mean, they're looking to stabilize threats that they perceive from other groups. We had one man who firebombed a church because they were turning kids gay or something. So he legitimately was thinking he's protecting them because he was so off into this Christian idealism. That was a good thing. He was, I think, trying to stabilize his community by keeping kids from this horrible crime of being gay.
hmm. I love your kind of systematic view, right? In terms of like thinking in terms of safety and stability. I guess like, we all love a happy ending. And again, I keep thinking like you're this actor in this really awesome movie, right? And then this about FBI agents. I guess like what kind of percentage were you able to, I guess, resolve these cases? Like have there been things left open? I guess what I'm just curious, like what kind of yeah,
Well,
tough
we
to
have a pretty
say.
good, yeah, no, I mean, we have a pretty good success rate because the FBI's mandate is to work enterprise investigations where we have the time to dig to the root and then find the breadth. There are, if you're asking like, hey, how does the story end for me? The story almost always ended with conviction, guilty plea, and then we don't know how things
Gotcha.
go. If guys turn around, if these young, if these victims are getting better. But to your question, we also then work with, and this is a frustration that like any investigator has. I have knowledge that here's a group of 10 men let's say, who are in a conspiracy, they are guilty. They have definitely committed crime. Okay, we're only going to indict 7 of them. And
Ugh.
so here's 3 that I know are criminals, and there will be no legal justice. Like, that's where hopefully, the God part comes in and says, hopefully God gets them. But there's so many times where it's not even that, where guys that committed crime, but there's these ancillary pieces where they're helping, they're knowing and winking at it, they're assisting in some way, but not in a illegal criminal way. Just the kind of thing that you and I would not patronize, maybe.
Interesting. How have you managed kind of like that? I mean, you talked about like they get the 7, there's 3 still missing. Do you still find you're attached to it or you can let that go because it's just kind of a job, if you will?
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
There's some frustration, and I'm
Sure.
going to fight
Sure.
with the prosecutor about it to get what I think is right, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And that was a learning process a bit. It's not like I was furious when I was young and then didn't care, apathetic at the end. But there is that learning of I understood now being in trial that the prosecutor can't risk going to trial. There's some things he will risk if it's like high value. He's like, we'll go to trial no matter what. But they've got to look at those guys and okay, so those 3, they're either weak or they're weak enough that they'll go to trial. And now this guy's tied up for too long. And then I saw on the other end, I'm trying to get a search warrant written on a completely separate case, but I can't get my prosecutor because he's in trial or he's got
Mm.
a prep. And so you go, yeah, that's the system. That's how it'll be.
No kidding. So when I think of FBI, I think of high confidentiality. You mentioned moving from, the being a pastor to an FBI agent. You had this sort of work life distinction that you wanted to make. Walk us through how work and life was being an FBI agent. Could you separate the two?
Oh, yeah,
Was there a
yeah.
blur? Yeah.
No, no, easily separated. And depending on what violation I'm working, I'm sharing things with my wife and family because I can tell general details. I was out on surveillance, guy got away today, or we're on the wire and he said, I'm being followed. There's a blue Caprice behind me. And like, none of us are
Yeah.
driving a blue Caprice.
Yeah. Right.
This
Right. Right.
guy's just paranoid for good reason. But I'm able to share some of those things. Working public corruption, national security, then not as much. I was part of the team that was called into my supervisor's office one day in Chicago, closed the door, and he said, I'm going to tell you something that you can't tell your family. You can't even tell other agents. And that's when we learned that we were going to be on a wiretap on a sitting governor, Rod Blagojevich of Illinois. So that was one time where I didn't tell my wife a thing. She's like, "Why are you leaving on a Sunday?" I said, "I got to work." And I'm not even telling her that I'm on a wiretap in case something, leaks through. But otherwise, when I was home, I was home. I didn't go to the bars afterwards. I didn't golf all weekend. There were many nights I was out late or mornings I left at 1 in the morning, times I was going to miss. And I felt like those were excusable if every other time I'm committed to, family life.
No, awesome. I guess, what were the work hours? What were the work hours like? Was it your typical 40-hour work week? Obviously not. You say you're going on Sundays, missing your golf time. Yeah.
Yeah, officially, and I remember being worried about this when I got in. Officially, it's 8:15 to 5, and then you have to put in an extra 2 hours every day too. So I
Wow.
remember I get on a drug squad and then you're getting paid for that.
Gotcha.
So I remember being on a drug squad and talking to one of the more senior guys saying, "Well, how do we do this?" And he said, "Brother, don't worry about it. Uncle Sam will get it out of you." And I got to tell you, like the first 10, 15 years that I was in the bureau, I was definitely in the red as far as time served. Like they got much more out of me. There were many days, like I said, on SWAT. I'm leaving at 1 or 2 in the morning to
Oof.
prep and, then just a zombie the rest of the day.
So this is the Work Sucks But I Like It podcast, Eric, and you've kind of already talked about things that have sucked, right? Kind of the time, and also not, I guess, bagging all the bad guys, if you will. Of the things that have sucked, what have you done to make them not suck? What are some things that you've kind of overcome in terms of the suckiness of that work that you were doing?
talking about it.
Okay.
It's amazing. Agents will have so many stories, and I write about these. Looking back, I go, "That's amazing that we have many remarkable stories." I could pull a guy on the phone right now and say, "Hey, just tell me a crazy story," and he'll tell me a crazy story. Everybody's done them. Like, my cases aren't special. I've had a few special ones, but they're not unique because other agents can go, "Yeah, here you go. Let me tell you about this time." But we'll also recount things that are, in retrospect, honestly, survivor stories. So we'll tell a story about, "Hey, remember that time Phil and one other operator went into the top deck and it was pitch black and Phil ended up stepping on the guy trying to hide underneath clothes on the floor and he had a loaded shotgun in his right hand." And we're laughing like, "Oh yeah, man, people could have been killed." Like, "Oh my, yeah." I mean, it's a horrible story, but everyone's laughing because here we are. We got through it. And there's so many like that where many of the stories you're telling are there's there's stories of trauma, but we're getting them out and working through them, I think, in that way of just let me let me explain this event that I'm saying is funny, and yet the public would go, "That's horrible."
So is that what motivated you to write your book then? To get these stories out?
In some ways, when I got accepted in the FBI, I thought, "This is amazing." And all throughout, there were many times where I would pause and think, "This is amazing." Now I'm out and I look back and I think, "That was amazing." I was just a guy. I didn't have any special skills. And then in the FBI, I gained those special skills. I'd never handled a gun before. First firearms in the academy. I'm skipping rounds off the ground 10 feet in front of me. And then I became a firearms instructor. And I put myself up against anybody. I wasn't the best, but I could beat anybody at some point. And I had no expertise in tactics. I became a tactical instructor because I was around good people, learning from them, then getting challenged like, "Hey, you should go to a class, now bring this back, be there to help out." And I just picked it up along the way, and the FBI just soaked so much of that into me. It was great benefit.
Now, I love those skills that you talked about picking up along the way. So, one of the things we like to say, Eric, on the show is that success is not a matter of good luck, but good skills. Throughout all the skills that you've learned and acquired, what would you say is the most important skill to your success at the work you do?
So I'll say what I brought in was the most useful of being able to communicate with people. So while I came into the academy and I've got some guys who were FBI support staff now becoming agents, former cops, former military, and they have an understanding of what law enforcement does. Here's me coming in trying to understand the bureau, and then I'm in a deeper hole because I don't know what cop life is like. But the advantage I had was I had 10, 12 years of learning people and learning how to listen and draw things out of them. So that gave me advantage later on. And then as far as what kept me safe was, especially being on SWAT, that regular training, I knew I was competent. I knew from watching these guys train with me weekly and then being in the real world operations, they were going to get their job. They were at least as competent as me. So if ever I made a move and I was exposed, that guy next to me is going to cover my exposed area, place his plates and rifle in a manner to defend me if need be. I was able to make calls when called upon to do it. So that made me feel safe such that when we were going to hit a house and we didn't know if a guy was going to violently oppose us, I wasn't afraid. I was only thinking, what's my job and do I have the equipment necessary to carry it out? And that brings a serenity where now I'm much more capable. I don't have something nagging at me. I can just move forward.
Well, it speaks to like the training too and the discipline. I think of like an athlete going in. I'm a big soccer fan. We got the World Cup here going on right now, 2026 in the US. Could you imagine a soccer playing being all nervous going into the game, right? To your point, you had to be steady, calm so you could do your job, right? So I really love that.
Well, but similarly, now if you put me on stage and say, teach, play guitar, now, well, I don't know if I'm nervous because I'm just so bad, but or let's say sing.
Sure.
I'm not proficient at it. And so now the nerves come. But in that element, I know what I'm doing. I've done this so many times. Watch me do it with my eyes closed.
No, I love that, Eric. So I know you're still working on your book. What is your book aiming to do? What do you want readers when they pick up your book? What do you want them to take away?
I think what they will take away is I could do that. Like this guy's not special. But then be amazed that but he got to do these remarkable things too. So I was just a Baptist pastor who then was a Baptist pastor in the FBI. And I've read many FBI books, and there's some awesome ones. And you get these stories where the story itself is amazing. Like here's a guy who infiltrates the mob. Here's somebody who's, was on HRT and saved people. And then you read mine and you go, yeah, that guy's kind of like me. I could do that. And I think with that, then you get that insight of, as you asked, this is what a normal investigation looks like. It's a normal investigation, but there's a lot of standout parts. The criminals and what they do, the stunts that we go through, the jokes that we play, the informants that are coming from some significant backgrounds that are now just sitting with me in a Panera Bread and telling me high value national security information.
So, Eric, let me see if I can get this. So, you're trying to show in your book the sort of like the human side, the more normal day to day, along with the heroics that people can be special.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what I got to do. I'm just an everyman. I didn't come from. I worked with guys who came from special forces, and they're no different than me. Like they came in here, and I came in here, but now we're both in this level. But it's common. I was common, but then also getting to do something substantial. I had a buddy who went to Princeton, and he told me once, yeah, I was connecting with some friends and looking on Facebook, and so many of my classmates are doing amazing things, business leaders, doctors. And I said, AJ, you're on the FBI SWAT team. They all wish they were you.
Yeah. But we have that FOMO, Eric, right? And I guess that's where I want to kind of lead to this next question. What are your thoughts with the current landscape of today of online? How do we navigate this? And like your friend, right? He feels inferior when he's already got a pretty awesome life. Like, how do
Yeah.
we navigate that? Like that's a real problem for people today.
For me, it was having an appreciation.
Mm.
This is something that, here's a little insight. A lot of FBI agents feel entitled. It comes with that authority. And so, they're the ones who'll park wherever they want to park. And they kind of, I'm like, I don't have that right. I'm just a guy. And actually, I don't know how much I deserve this badge and gun. I've lived up to it, but you're bestowed with this great honor. So, uh, a lot of people come with that entitlement. I came in with, I don't deserve this, but I'm going to keep earning it.
More
And
humble.
so when somebody's saying I had this great life, I had buddies in the bureau who did some amazing things. I stayed as a field agent for 24 years. I had one of my great friends from the academy ended up being number 3 in the FBI.
Wow.
Now single guy, so he can bounce around, and I think that's amazing. But I think that's amazing that I got to know him. Like great for him. I just wanted to do the investigations, the training, the SWAT. That for me, that was remarkable enough.
How do you get ranked? You mentioned he was number 3. What's the ranking system? How does that work?
It's on pull-ups, how many pull-ups you can do. So
Oh,
I'm kidding.
okay. I
Uh,
was like, oh, wow. Must be really good.
there's a site called FBI Hot or Not, and
Okay.
so you move up to management. So he became a supervisor, and then he becomes an assistant special agent in charge, which would be like a group of maybe 4 people who are number 2 in that field office. Then he became a special agent in charge, which meant he ran a city's office. He was part of the first fly team, which is a group of agents who would go overseas to interrogate high value terrorist targets. So like now he's getting some cachet, some background, some experience. He moved up. He goes back to headquarters. Now he's going to be a unit chief over this aspect of the FBI. Then becomes a section chief, and then gets tapped to be assistant deputy director. I thought, I I didn't expect it, but I'm not surprised.
That's cool. That's awesome. So, Eric, I'm excited about your book. Hopefully, listeners of today's show will be excited as well. Where's a good place for them to land to, when this thing's coming out? And do you have a timeline for when this thing's
Yeah,
going to be launched?
the book comes out in October. My
Okay.
wife's company, Weaving Influence, just began publishing books as well, and she's the one who pushed me into writing. They've been marketing authors for 14 years, and then they started saying, "Oh, we can publish too. Let's do this." So it comes out in October, and you can find me on LinkedIn at _Eric_Robinson, or that's Instagram, LinkedIn. You put in Eric Robinson and FBI, you'll find me. Or you can go to my website, which is preacher2breacher.com.
Love it. Eric, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony.
One thing that stood out to me from this conversation is that every career comes with challenges, but not every challenge affects us in the same way. For Eric, the work of being a pastor became emotionally unsustainable, while the demanding and often dangerous work of the FBI gave him a clearer sense of purpose and healthier boundaries. His story is a reminder that meaningful work isn't necessarily the easiest work, it's the work that aligns with your strengths, your values, and the way you're wired. Whether he's talking about the importance of listening, relying on your team, or treating every human with humanity, Eric shows that remarkable careers are often built on ordinary skills practiced consistently. And that is the skill today. Write out your skills, reflect on how you are developing them throughout your day. And with that, we'll see you next time.